Toastmasters and a welcome guest. So is there anything you wanted to be or do, such as stand-up comedian or astronaut, but you thought you're not good enough or you're not smart enough? Or you wanted to start a new business or change the career, but you didn't have enough money or you didn't have certain credentials for the job, so you gave up. Or you had a crush on somebody, but you thought you're not good enough, so you never attempt to ask that person out. We probably can relate to some of those stories, like something that you wanted to do, but for some reason you gave up. Recently, I read a book called Educated. It's a story about Tara Westover, who was raised by the fundamentalist parents, who believed in the strict literal interpretation of the scripture and the religion. Her parents didn't believe in any schooling system, education system, or medicine or doctors. So she and her siblings never attended a school except for a couple who decided to go to college with their own will against their parents' force. So her parents' distorted view on education and medicine and doctors became her life, built her belief system. And it was, well, just to be clear, it was not a book about criticizing certain type of religion, but not being able to attend a school. When she decided to go to college, she never had a concept of using the textbook for the class, or she never learned how to study for the test, or she never had a chance to write an essay or journal. So you can imagine what a life is like. First couple of years, it was constant challenging and the awkward moment. Especially she never lived in a quote unquote normal circumstances where people wash their hands after the bathroom, or you are not supposed to leave dirties in the sink. Well, even though some people do, but a couple days, especially when you're living with a roommate. So it was like a constant challenge. But for her, the real challenge was the fighting against the identity or belief system that was inflicted on her. The thoughts and who she is that everybody said she is, and she had to fight against it. And when I came to the States, I was very, very quiet. I mean, that's my personality. But I never asked the questions to the professors or my bosses, even when the clarification is required. It's because asking questions in my culture to some degree is viewed as a threatening their authority. So breaking that moment took a while. So her real journey in her book is really about building her own identity, her believing system. What she grew up with and the thought everybody says she is was so embedded in her and it became her identity. So just fighting against it, that was a whole journey, and she wanted to build a whole identity through education, reading books with her own desire to seek knowledge and explore the thoughts of historians and build her own thoughts and share that, so that she doesn't have to depend on the narratives imposed on her by others. When I came to the States, I already finished my school, my college, and I worked in Korea a little bit. So it was after 25 years old, and I know there are more than few people who came to the States to explore the world, just like me. And just coming to the States, I think it requires a lot of bravery. And I remember, when I decided to come to the States, a lot of people said that, it's almost impossible to learn a new language after 25 something, right? And it's not just about language. Their culture is embedded into the language, and that belief system, what everybody said, was scary enough, but that statement was so powerful and strong, so strong enough that I kind of excused myself to push up to the next level or take a more challenging job or a management role. And I believe that I live with that kind of limited myself, or the belief system where I'm under limited circumstances until I learn about brain. Brain is changeable and adaptable, and we can actually make it smarter and sharper by training. And as you can see, Pat actually was talking about her learning piano and French. And there are so many people who master their skills or learn new languages in their 40s and 50s. But I also lived this, my own limitation until I learned about growth mindset. According to Dr. Carol Dweck, the professor at Stanford University, the people with a growth mindset believe that the success is based on training, pushing yourself, and learning, rather than talent or intelligence that you are born with. So for them, that mindset liberated them from the fear of failure, because fear is really fear becomes fear until doesn't fear the failure until you label it failure. So for them, failure is just like a part of the way to tell you, oh, you're not on the right track. And you can still make improvements by working at it. Of course, this neuroscience, new findings, or this psychology, or the growth mindset doesn't tell you that, like we are all saying. We are born with the different talents and intelligence, and we are not becoming Einstein. But the key point is, we can get better by working at it. And knowing that, gaining that knowledge, gave me totally different perspective and different approach to everything. But I'm here to tell you more to it. As illustrated in the Terrace story, there is more. She was constantly struggling and fighting and battling with herself against all those belief systems. And when I was reading a book, I cried a lot. And I think we can all relate ourselves to her story. Because once you gain this knowledge and learn about the world, and there's a lot more that you can do, what you're going to face is the gap between who you desire to be versus who everybody says you are. So we are all living in this social network, and we learn all the survival skills from the people as soon as we are born, like from parents and siblings, and teachers and friends and co-workers. And the world that we are living in is so willing to tell you who you should be. The narrative the world is willing to give to you, unless you work hard to internalize the knowledge you gain. So, is there anything you wanted to do, but you push back because you're so scared because of what other people say? And it's time to look into what story you are giving to yourself. And if you are having a hard time to internalize the importance of rewriting your story, so stay tuned. I'm going to talk about some techniques to help you.